Looking back, it's hard to remember Jamison as a player who was on the level of a Kobe Bryant or a Kevin Garnett. We can't pinpoint those moments where he transcended his rank and willed his team to crucial victories like those I just mentioned. And on top of that, he doesn't have anywhere near the amount of accolades that they have. And of course, we use all-star nods and individual accolades to weigh success. But Antawn is one of those players where it's a little different. You see, the same guy who only nabbed 2 all-star selections also averaged at least 19 points in 10 of the 16 seasons he was in the league, and only fell below single digits 3 total times in his entire career. On top of that, he brought down at least 8 rebounds 7 times in his career. And from his second NBA season to his 12th, he averaged as much as Garnett from the field, and he rebounded as much as Nowitzki. But because of his subpar accolades, we really don't recognize this, and many of us forgot how nice he really was. Now, Antawn's life started out a little bit weird. He was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, and his parents named him Antoine, spelled A-N-T-W-A-N, but the hospital misspelled it Antawn on his birth certificate. The error was never corrected, but the pronunciation did not change. He had a strong upbringing though. His father, Antawn Jamison, played ball at Nebraska, so this early exposure to the game through his father played a significant role in developing his interest and skills in basketball. Now, when Jamison was around 7 years old, his family up and relocated from Louisiana to Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is where the rest of the world would learn about the future star that was Antawn Jamison. In high school, Antawn was one of the best players in the entire country. Over his 4 years in high school, he racked up a couple impressive accolades. In his senior year, he was selected to participate in the prestigious McDonald's All-American game, which showcases the top high school basketball players in the United States. On top of that, he ended up winning North Carolina Mr. Basketball Award during his senior year of high school as well. And then he helped lead his high school, Providence High School, to back-to-back state championships in 1994 and 1995. And by the time he was done with high school, he was considered by many to be one of the top high school basketball players in the entire nation. And of course, knowing that, he had a lot of colleges fighting for his talents. But in the end of the day, he decided to stay close to home, and he attended the same college that greats like MJ played at and Dean Smith coached. And that is none other than the UNC Tar Heels. Naturally, there was a lot of pressure for the 18-year-old All-American when he started college. But little did we know, by the time he was done, not only would he be one of the best players to come through Chapel Hill, but also one of the best players to come through all of college basketball. And he had a career that was dominant from the very beginning. In his freshman year, despite being a freshman, Antawn made an immediate impact for the Tar Heels. He showcased his scoring ability, versatility, and rebounds, and quickly became a valuable asset to the team. He averaged 15.1 points and brought down 9 rebounds a game. He was the second leading scorer on the team and arguably the best player on a top 25 UNC team that was about to enter the national tournament at a 6th seed in the East. They won their first game against New Orleans, but they were blown out the very next round by Texas Tech. But this was no big deal. See, North Carolina, of course, in the past, they had seen a lot of success in college basketball, but the hopes weren't very high for this team. However, the next couple of seasons, they would be amazing. Now, after this season, their leading scorer Jeff McInnes left to enter the draft, and this forced Antawn to a bigger role for the Tar Heels as a sophomore. He immediately became a focal point of North Carolina's offense and was expected to contribute significantly in scoring and rebounding. Now, Jeff was a big loss. I mean, he was the leading scorer on the team that just made the tournament. But UNC had plenty of young guys like Vince Carter and Shammond Williams that were prepared to step up that next season. And with Antawn at the helm, the world was not ready for what UNC was going to do that following season. Antawn excelled in his new role as the leader of the team. He averaged 19 points and 9.9 rebounds per game. This was good enough to make him a consensus second-team All-American, and he nabbed the ACC Player of the Year award as well. NC improved as well, as they were now the 4th team in the AP poll and a top seed in the tournament, primed for a deep run led by their new star. They started off strong in the win versus Fairfield and carried that momentum over as they blew out 19 Colorado in the next round. Both games, Antawn performed pretty strongly. They continued this momentum through the next 2 rounds as they defeated Cal and Louisville handily. But in their next game, they had a big challenge coming versus an Arizona team that featured Michael Dickerson, Mike Bibby, and Jason Terry. Now UNC had some stars themselves and it was a good matchup, but in the end, UNC caught the L. Jamison faced a tough defensive matchup and this forced him and limited him to 12 points and 7 rebounds. And in the end, North Carolina will fall short against Arizona, and this effectively ended their tournament run. Now, folks are pretty sad. I mean, North Carolina had an amazing season. They were a top 5 team in the nation, and although they made a deep run, they didn't win the championship, which I'm sure a lot of people were projecting. And on top of that, Jamison had faced his first real challenge in his college basketball career, and he didn't really perform too well. But next season, Jamison would face every challenge head on, and he would solidify himself as one of the best players in all of college basketball. Now, by the end of his sophomore season, Jamison's potential as an NBA prospect was becoming increasingly evident to everybody. His combination of skills, size, and versatility made him a sought-after player for the upcoming NBA draft. And honestly, he really could have just left after this season and easily would have been a top pick in the NBA. But he decided to stay one more year, and boy, what a year it was. He had a monster season as he averaged a double-double and he was dominant throughout the entire season. One Arkansas Red nabbed him as the star of stars that year. He was an excellent player as a freshman and a sophomore, yes, but Jamison went into full cheat code as a junior, and in arguably the most matchup the rivalry's history, he made that clear against Duke in Chapel Hill, where he had arguably the best game of his college career and one of the best games in college basketball history. Now, Duke was nice this year, as they are, and they had just brought in a blue chip recruiting class with a lot of hyped up and good recruits. But this was nothing to Jamison, as he was matched up on one of their most hyped up prospects, Shane Battier, and he gave freshman Shane Battier the basketball version of a life lesson. He ended the night with 35 points on 14 of 20 shooting and also pulled down 11 rebounds. And if you watch the game, it's just a masterful act of moving without the ball and scoring. And by the end of the night, the National Player of the Year race was over. He really stacked the trophy case this year as he won ACC Player of the Year for the second consecutive year. He was a consensus first team All-American and consensus first team All-ACC. He also nabbed the Naismith and Wooden Award, and with all of this stuff that he acquired, he looked to lead NC to that national championship that they were yearning for since his freshman year. And this team looked primed for it as they were the #1 team in the AP poll by the end of the season. They took this momentum into the tournament and they had a strong run going up until their semifinal game versus the Utah Utes. And Jamison performed well, of course, but although it was a close game, by the end, North Carolina was on the losing end, and with that loss came the end of Jamison's decorated college career. Now, going to the draft last year, Jamison already had a lot of hype, but after this season he just had, it was even more hype surrounding him. He was regarded as one of the top players in the draft, and scouts loved his versatility, scoring ability, and intangibles. They noted these as key attributes that would most likely translate well to the NBA. This is why he was taken by the Raptors with the 4th pick in that draft, but he would end up being traded to the Warriors on draft night for his teammate Vince Carter. Now, unfortunately for Jamison, his first year in the NBA was the lockout-shortened 1998-1999 season. The league only played 50 games, but in those games, Jamison still got to showcase his skills for the basketball world to see. He averaged 9.6 points on 45.2% shooting, and he was 4th among rookies in rebounds per game with 6.4. However, this next year, he would explode. In his first full NBA season, he upped all of his averages. He was now averaging 19.6 points per game, and he was pulling out 8.3 rebounds on 47.1% field goal percentage. He led the Warriors in scoring that year, and he was 2nd in rebounding, and he was a bright spot on a very bad Warriors team. The Warriors started off horrible this season under head coach PJ Carlesimo, and as a matter of fact, PJ's job had been hanging in the balance for a minute. He was weighed down by a tarnished past, an indifferent losing team, and lingering questions about his coaching philosophy. And after a 6-21 start, the Warriors fired him and replaced him with the general manager, Gary St. John, who was now the head coach and general manager. Now, players like Carlesimo on a personal level, but they questioned his communication skills and his decision making during the course of games. They tolerated, but they refused to embrace his hands-on and sometimes abrasive style, which is actually what sparked the viral moment where Latrell Sprewell had choked him during the practice in December. Then, what made things worse for the Warriors that season, Antawn was sprained his knee in February, and then he aggravated it a couple days later, and this ended up sidelining him for the rest of the season. But there was a lot to look forward to for the Warriors as they went through a complete overhaul in the front office and roster-wise, and they had acquired pieces like Larry Hughes and Billy Owens, and they hoped to get a glimmer of hope back in the Bay Area. However, the following season, they struggled once again, and they actually finished with a worse record this year than the year before, and injuries was once again a big problem for the Warriors. Jamison was amazing though, as he had his best season as a pro. During the 2001 season, he scored a career-high 24.9 points per game and led Golden State in scoring. This season also included two of Jamison's best game ever, as he went to a different level in December. It all started when the Warriors were playing the Seattle Supersonics on December 3rd, and they had come into the game with a record of 5-12. Now the Sonics were much better as they had a record of 8-10. This game, Jamison scored a career-high 51 points and grabbed 14 rebounds as the Warriors lost 118-102. Jamison also shot a career-high 36 field goal attempts that game. But this isn't the game that everyone remembers, because not too long after that, Jamison matched his own greatness. Following the loss to Seattle, the Warriors had the reigning champion Los Angeles Lakers on December 6th. The Lakers were 14-5 and were just coming off a win against the Philadelphia 76ers. But Jamison and Kobe Bryant had a scoring battle for the ages as they both put up 51 points in the duel. And on top of that, the Warriors actually ended up defeating the defending champion Lakers 125-122 in overtime. Jamison's back-to-back 50-point games were the hallmark of his career season, in which he ranked 9th in the league in scoring that year. However, as great as Antawn performed, the Warriors could never put together a winning season. And even though they had young talent like Jamison and Gilbert Arenas, nothing seemed to be working. And this was part of the reason why following the 2002-03 season, the Warriors dealt Jamison to the Mavs. Now, this was a big change for Jamison, as for the first time in his NBA career, he was in a winning environment. And the Mavericks are trying hard for a ring this year, and they made some big moves in the offseason to solidify themselves as contenders in the league. And during the offseason, not only did the Mavericks acquire Jamison from the Warriors, they also got All-Star forward Antoine Walker from the Boston Celtics. Now, they did struggle with chemistry to start the year, and this led to a 15-12 start. But they ended up gelling, and the Mavericks went on a 9-game winning streak in January, and they finished strong as they won 8 of their final 10 games. Jamison was phenomenal as well, as he shot a career-high 53.5% from the field, and he took home 6 Man of the Year honors that year as well. He was one of the main reasons for the Mavericks being one of the best offenses in the entire NBA that season. However, the Mavs wouldn't make it far in the playoffs. As a matter of fact, they wouldn't make it past the first round, as they lost in 5 games to the Kings, and Jamison had an okay showing in his first ever playoff appearance. Now, it was reported that after this season, Jamison didn't really like the 6-man role, as he saw himself as someone who could be a bigger piece on a different team. And he got his wrist as he was traded to the Wizards the very next season in exchange for Jerry Stackhouse, Christian Laettner, and the first round pick, which turned out to be Devin Harris. This trade actually reunited Jamison with former Golden State teammates Gilbert Arenas and Larry Hughes. In his first season with the Wizards, it was amazing, as he was named to the NBA All-Star team for the first time in his career, and the Wizards enjoyed a solid 45-37 win-loss that season. This was their finest record in 26 years, and they also made the playoffs for the first time since 1997 and advanced past the first round for the first time since 1982. He played great in both the regular season and playoffs for the Wiz, but they were put out by the Dwayne Wade-led Heat that year in the postseason. The Wizards did regress next year though, but Jamison was phenomenal once again. However, when the postseason came, they fell victim to another young star in the league. The Wizards were playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, and LeBron James had the Cavs playing their best basketball since the early 1990s. Washington was swept in the first round, but Jamison had a great showing. He led the Wizards in scoring with 32 points per game, and he shot 47.6% from the field. He also led them in rebounds per game as well. However, this was a constant theme for the rest of Jamison's time in Washington. He'd average 20, he'd have a good season, but the Wizards would be mediocre, hanging around 500, and they would end up losing in the first round. The Wizards eventually had enough of this, and in the middle of the 2010 season, Jamison was dealt to the Cavs to assist LeBron in his quest to capture his first championship. Bad news is that LeBron was fed up with the Cavs ownership and front office at this point, and he would leave to go to Miami in that offseason. And the Cavaliers had very little success during Jamison's time in Cleveland, as in the 2010-2011 season, they set an NBA record 26-game losing streak, which actually broke a mark that the Cavaliers set back in 1983. In January of 2011, Jamison actually said that he was considering retirement and that the 2011-2012 season could be his last. He would end up playing 2 more seasons, but he was a shell of his former self, and this forced him to officially retire from the league in 2014. This retirement capped off one of the most underrated careers in the entire NBA. He would eventually have his jersey retired by UNC, and he was elected into the College Basketball Hall of Fame in 2021, but he has not been elected into the Basketball Hall of Fame yet. Jamison is one of only 2 players, the other one being Tom Chambers, to have scored 20,000 or more career points and not be elected into the Hall. And this is one of many reasons why he should be remembered as a hardwood legend, because for years he terrorized teams in the league with his scoring ability and versatility. However, he doesn't really get the recognition he deserves for it. But this is just my opinion. For guys who might have grown up and watched him or who saw him, let me know how you feel about Antawn Jamison. Thanks. If you enjoyed this video, this is a part of a new series I'm introducing called Hardwood Nightmares, where I take a look into some of the older and more forgotten great players in the NBA. But this is all I have for now. Y'all make sure y'all leave a like, and y'all make sure y'all subscribe. And I'll see y'all later. Peace.